Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel because what happened next will absolutely restore your faith in the power of love and sacrifice. You won't believe what this husband had been hiding from his wife for over a year. Steve Harvey had seen thousands of families walk through the Family Feud stage over his years of hosting the show. He had witnessed countless emotional moments, surprising victories, and heartwarming stories. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for what Marcus Thompson was about to reveal on that warm September afternoon in 2024. What started as a typical game show appearance would become one of the most powerful moments in television history, leaving the entire studio in tears and millions of viewers around the world questioning what they would do for the people they love. The Thompson family from Detroit, Michigan stood on stage, ready to compete against the Martinez family from Phoenix, Arizona. Marcus Thompson, a 38-year-old automotive technician, stood at the podium with his wife Diana beside him. She wore a beautiful floral dress, her smile bright despite the slight pallor in her cheeks that only those who knew her story would notice. Their two teenage children, 16-year-old Maya and 14-year-old Jordan, bounced with excitement behind them, thrilled to be on their favorite game show. What the audience didn't know was the journey that had brought the Thompson family to this moment. Just 18 months earlier, Diana had been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. The diagnosis had come like a thunderbolt on an ordinary Tuesday morning, transforming their comfortable middle-class life into a nightmare of medical bills, treatment schedules, and terrifying uncertainty. Marcus and Diana had met in college 20 years ago. She was studying to be a teacher, and he was pursuing his passion for automotive engineering. They had built a life together through hard work and determination. Marcus had inherited his father's love of classic cars, and when his father passed away 5 years ago, he had left Marcus his prized possession, a collection of 3 restored vintage automobiles, including a 1967 Chevrolet Camaro that Marcus's father had spent 15 years restoring. Those cars weren't just vehicles to Marcus. They were his connection to his father, his childhood memories of weekends, spent in the garage learning about engines, and life from a man he admired more than anyone in the world. Diana, meanwhile, had dedicated her life to teaching elementary school. She was the kind of teacher who stayed late to help struggling students, who spent her own money on classroom supplies, and who remembered every single student's name years after they left her class. Her students called her Mrs. T, and parents requested their children be placed in her classroom. She was the heart of their family, the one who made their house a home, who never missed a school event, and who could turn the worst day into something bearable with just her presence. When cancer invaded their lives, everything changed. Diana's insurance covered a portion of the treatment, but the cutting-edge immunotherapy her oncologist recommended wasn't fully covered. The experimental treatment offered the best chance of survival, but it came with a price tag that made Marcus's heart stop, over $200,000 out of pocket. They had some savings, but nowhere near enough. The choice seemed impossible: go into crushing debt for decades, potentially lose their home, or risk Diana's life with less effective treatment options. Marcus didn't hesitate. He made a decision that would haunt him for the next year but that he would make again in a heartbeat. He sold his father's cars, all 3 of them: the 1967 Camaro, the 1972 Ford Mustang, and the 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air. He sold them to a private collector for a fraction of their emotional value, but enough money to cover most of Diana's treatment. He told Diana that their insurance had come through with better coverage. He told his children that he had moved the cars to a climate-controlled storage facility. He told himself he was doing the right thing, even as it felt like he was selling pieces of his soul. But selling the cars wasn't enough. The medical bills kept coming: physical therapy, medications, follow-up scans, specialist consultations. The costs were relentless, so Marcus took a second job working night shifts at a warehouse, then a third job on weekends doing mobile mechanic work. He would leave for his regular job at the auto shop at 7 in the morning, come home briefly to have dinner with his family, then head to the warehouse from 11 at night until 6 in the morning. On Saturdays and Sundays, he worked on cars in customers' driveways and parking lots. He told Diana he was working overtime at the shop. She was too weak from treatment to question it closely. Maya and Jordan noticed their father was always tired, always working, But Marcus brushed off their concerns with a smile and a promise that everything was fine. He was running on 4 hours of sleep a night, existing on coffee and determination, his body wearing down under the weight of physical labor and emotional stress. But every time he wanted to quit, he would look at Diana fighting for her life and know that his exhaustion was nothing compared to her battle. The Family Feud appearance came about through a stroke of luck. Diana's sister had applied for them months ago, before the diagnosis, thinking it would be a fun family adventure. When the call came inviting them to appear on the show, Diana was 6 months into remission and starting to feel like herself again. She was thrilled. It would be their first real family outing since her diagnosis, a chance to do something normal and fun together. Marcus agreed enthusiastically, seeing it as a way to give his family some joy, though he privately hoped they might win enough money to ease some of the financial pressure that kept him awake at night. Now they stood on that stage under the bright lights, and Steve Harvey was working his magic with the crowd. The Thompson family had won the main game with a combination of smart answers and good luck. They were heading into fast money with 142 points already on the board from Maya's round. Marcus would go second, needing just 58 points to win the $20,000 prize. As they prepared for the final round, Steve noticed something in Marcus's expression. It wasn't the usual nervous excitement of a contestant about to play for money. It was something deeper, something that looked almost like pain mixed with hope. Marcus approached the podium, and Diana gave his hand a squeeze before stepping back. Steve looked at him with his characteristic warmth. "Marcus, you ready for this? Your daughter did great, got you 142 points. You just need 58 to win that $20,000. What would you do with that money if you win?" It was a standard question Steve asked contestants all the time. Usually people said they would pay bills, take a vacation, or save for college. Marcus opened his mouth to give a similar answer, but something happened in that moment. Maybe it was the exhaustion from working 3 jobs finally catching up with him. Maybe it was seeing his wife looking healthier and happier than she had in months. Maybe it was the weight of carrying this secret for over a year finally becoming too heavy. Whatever it was, the truth came spilling out. "Steve," Marcus said, his voice already thick with emotion, "I need to tell you something. I need to tell my wife something." The studio fell quiet, sensing this wasn't a typical game show moment. Steve's expression shifted from playful to concerned. Diana stepped forward, confused and worried. "Marcus, honey, what's wrong?" Marcus turned to face his wife, tears already streaming down his face. "Diana, baby, I haven't been honest with you. The insurance didn't cover your treatment. They denied most of it, I paid for it." The entire studio was silent. Diana's hand flew to her mouth. "But how? Where did you get that kind of money?" Marcus's voice broke as he continued. "I sold Dad's cars. All 3 of them. The Camaro, the Mustang, the Bel Air. I sold them to pay for your treatment. And I've been working 3 jobs to cover the rest of the bills. That's where I've been all those nights you thought I was working overtime." Steve Harvey stood frozen, his usual quick wit completely failing him. The audience was utterly silent, many people openly crying. Diana was sobbing now, shaking her head. "Marcus, no, those cars were everything to you. They were your father's legacy. How could you? Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus reached for her hands. "Because you are everything to me, Diana. Are my legacy. Those cars were metal and memories, but you are my heart. You are our children's mother. You are the love of my life. There was no choice to make. I would sell everything I own, work every hour of every day, give up anything in this world to keep you in it." The studio erupted in applause and tears. Steve Harvey, for the first time in his hosting career, had to turn away from the camera, openly weeping. When he finally composed himself enough to speak, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Marcus, in all my years of doing this show, I have never, and I mean never, heard anything like what you just said. Brother, you just defined what love really means." But Marcus wasn't finished. "That's why this money matters so much, Steve. It's not about paying bills. Dad had this Camaro, the one he restored. He always told me it would be mine someday, that we'd work on it together when I had kids of my own. I want to buy it back. I found out the collector still has it. He said he'd sell it back to me for what I sold it for if I could come up with the money. I want my kids to know their grandfather through that car, the way I did. I want something of him to pass down to them. And with whatever's left, I just want to not be so tired all the time. I want to have dinner with my family without falling asleep at the table. I want to take my wife on a date without checking my bank account first." Steve Harvey took a long breath, wiping his eyes. "Marcus, let's play this game. Let's win this money." The questions began and Marcus answered each one with quiet focus. "Name something people do when they're nervous." "Bite their nails." Survey said #1 answer. Name a place you go that makes you wait. DMV, number one answer. Name something that makes you feel better when you're sick. Soup, number one answer. One by one, Marcus answered, and one by one, the board revealed top answers. By the time the buzzer sounded, he had scored 189 points, bringing their total to 331 points, one of the highest fast money scores ever recorded. The studio exploded in celebration. Maya and Jordan rushed to hug their father. Deanna wrapped her arms around him and wouldn't let go, crying into his shoulder. "We're getting that car back," she whispered. "We're getting your father's car back. And you're quitting those other jobs. We'll figure out the bills together." Like we should have been doing all along. But Steve Harvey wasn't done. He called the family back to the center of the stage. "Marcus, Diana, kids, come here. I want to say something." He addressed the cameras directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we just witnessed something special. We witnessed what real love looks like. Not the Hollywood version, not the fairy tale. Real love. The kind that works 3 jobs and never complains. The kind that gives up the things that matter to save the person who matters most." Steve paused, then continued. "Marcus, you won $20,000 today. That's yours. You earned it. But I'm going to make you a promise right here, right now. My foundation is going to help you buy back that Camaro. Whatever it costs above what you won here, we're going to cover it. Because your father's legacy shouldn't be lost. It should be in your garage, where you can teach Jordan and Maya about engines and hard work and sacrifice, the way your father taught you." The episode aired 3 weeks later and immediately went viral. The clip of Marcus's confession garnered over 50 million views in the first week. News outlets around the country picked up the story. People magazine featured the Thompson family. The Today Show invited them for an interview. But more importantly, the response from everyday people was overwhelming. The warehouse where Marcus worked his night shift saw the episode. The next day, his supervisor called him into the office. Marcus feared he was about to be fired for missing some shifts to tape the show. Instead, the supervisor handed him an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000, collected from everyone at the warehouse who wanted to help. "We take care of our own," the supervisor said. "You don't need to work nights anymore. We saw what you did for your wife." That's the kind of man we want on our team full-time. The mobile mechanic service that Marcus had been working weekends for started getting calls from people who specifically wanted Marcus to work on their cars, offering to pay premium rates because they had seen his story and wanted to support him. He was able to be selective, only taking weekend jobs that paid well enough to make up for what he had been making working twice as many hours. But the most beautiful part of the story was what happened with the Camaro. Steve Harvey's foundation kept its promise, but it turned out they didn't need to. The collector who had bought Marcus's cars saw the episode. He was a father himself, a man who had lost his own father to cancer. He reached out to the show directly with an offer. He would sell the Camaro back to Marcus for $1. Not as charity, he explained, but as an investment in what mattered. "I bought that car thinking it was just a beautiful restoration," he wrote in his letter to Marcus. "But after seeing your story, I realized it's so much more than that. It's a piece of your father, a lesson for your children, and proof that love is worth more than any possession. I have plenty of cars. You need this one more than I do." 6 months after the episode aired, the Thompson family gathered in their garage for a special moment. Marcus's father's 1967 Camaro sat gleaming under the lights, fully restored and back where it belonged. Jordan and Maya sat in the driver's seat, taking turns, while Diana stood next to Marcus with her arm around his waist. She had been cancer-free for 8 months now, her hair growing back in soft curls, her energy returning week by week. Family Feud did a follow-up segment documenting the reunion between Marcus and the car. Steve Harvey was there in person to witness it. When Marcus sat in the driver's seat for the first time in over a year, running his hands over the steering wheel his father had restored, he broke down in tears. Steve sat in the passenger seat, and the two men had a conversation that millions would watch and share. "Marcus," Steve said quietly, "what would your father say if he could see you right now?" Marcus thought for a long moment. "He'd say I did the right thing. Dad always told me that things are just things, but people are everything. He'd be proud that I chose Diana over the cars. But I think he'd also be happy that the car is back, that it gets to be part of our family again." Steve nodded. "Your father raised a good man. And you're raising good kids. That's legacy, brother. That's what matters." The impact of Marcus's confession extended far beyond his own family. Cancer treatment centers around the country reported an increase in patients asking about financial assistance programs. The story sparked a national conversation about the hidden costs of healthcare and the crushing burden of medical debt on American families. Several insurance companies revised their coverage policies for experimental treatments in response to the public attention. But perhaps more importantly, Marcus's story inspired ordinary people to have honest conversations about their own struggles. Marriage counselors reported couples coming in saying they had been hiding financial stress from each other, inspired by Marcus and Diana's story to be more open. Support groups for cancer patients and their families used the Family Feud clip in their meetings as a reminder that asking for help isn't weakness, and that sharing burdens is what families do. 2 years after that unforgettable Family Feud appearance, the Thompson family's life had transformed in ways they never could have imagined. Diana had returned to teaching, her classroom decorated with cards and letters from people around the country who had been touched by her family's story. Marcus was still working at the auto shop, but now as the head mechanic, with a salary that reflected his skills and dedication. He had turned his weekend mobile mechanic service into a small business that specialized in working on classic cars. Jordan, now 16, had developed a passion for automotive engineering, spending hours in the garage with his father working on the Camaro and learning the same lessons Marcus's father had taught him. Maya, 18 and preparing for college, had decided to major in social work, inspired by her family's experience to help other families navigate healthcare crises. The Camaro became more than just a car in their driveway. It became a symbol. Marcus and Jordan started a program called Rides for Recovery, using the car and Marcus's contacts in the classic car community to organize car shows that raised money for cancer treatment assistance. They had helped over 100 families afford treatment that their insurance wouldn't cover. Every car show, Marcus would tell their story, always ending with the same message. Love isn't about the grand gestures. It's about showing up, doing the work, and never giving up on the people who matter most. Steve Harvey stayed connected with the family, visiting whenever he was in Detroit. He would often say in interviews that Marcus's confession was the moment that reminded him why television could be powerful. It wasn't about entertainment, he would explain. It was about real human connection, about truth, and about showing people the best of what we can be for each other. When asked about that day on Family Feud, Marcus always said the same thing. I went on that show hoping to win money. But what I really won was my freedom. Freedom from the secret I had been carrying. Freedom from pretending I was okay when I was drowning. And freedom to be honest with my wife about the struggles we were facing. That was worth more than any prize money. Diana would add her perspective, her voice strong and clear, no trace of the sickness that had nearly taken her. Marcus thought he was saving me by taking on everything alone. But what he didn't understand until that moment on stage is that we save each other. Marriage isn't about one person carrying all the weight. It's about sharing the load, being honest about the struggles, and facing everything together. That's what makes us stronger. The confession that Steve Harvey had no words for became one of the most quoted moments in Family Feud history. But for those who understood the full story, it was so much more than a viral moment. It was a testament to the power of sacrificial love, the importance of vulnerability, and the strength that comes from sharing our burdens with the people we love. 5 years later, when the Camaro was finally passed down to Jordan as he graduated from automotive engineering school, Marcus gave him the same speech his father had given him decades before. This car represents more than horsepower and chrome. It represents the sacrifices people make for family, the value of hard work, and the truth that the things we love most are worth fighting for. Take care of it, and someday, you'll pass it down to your own children with the same lesson. The story of Marcus Thompson's shocking confession on Family Feud continues to circulate on social media, shared by people who are moved by the raw honesty and deep love it represents. It has been featured in textbooks on family psychology, referenced in sermons about sacrifice and love, and used in marriage counseling as an example of the importance of communication and shared burden. But perhaps the most powerful legacy of that moment is the quieter impact it had on countless individuals who were carrying their own secret burdens. People who were working multiple jobs and pretending everything was fine. People who were hiding financial stress from their partners. People who were sacrificing in silence, thinking that was the only way to show love. Marcus's confession gave them permission to be honest, to ask for help, and to share their struggles with the people who loved them. As this remarkable story demonstrates, Sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we stop pretending to be strong and allow ourselves to be honest. Marcus Thompson didn't plan to make television history when he stepped onto that Family Feud stage. He was just a tired man carrying a heavy secret, hoping to win a little money to ease the burden. But in choosing honesty over pretense, in sharing his truth with his wife and the world, he created something far more valuable than a game show victory. He showed us that real love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up every day, doing what needs to be done, and being willing to sacrifice for the people who matter most. But he also showed us that love grows stronger when we share our burdens, when we're honest about our struggles, and when we face challenges together instead of alone. If you found this story as moving as we did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that will touch your heart and restore your faith in humanity. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message about love, sacrifice, and the power of honesty. And remember, the people we love are always worth more than the things we own. That's the lesson Marcus Thompson taught the world, and it's one worth remembering every single day.